taken a lot of debt, to be able to be at college right now. And so again, they tend to focus on, say, brand or salary as kind of the two main factors, which are important. But I've seen through our work with students, the ones that have gone on, if they actually take a deep dive that look at, how does the company's values align with themselves? To your point, do you wake up every day? That's something you want to go to work, because you can be pretty miserable going to work every day, from what I've seen. And then, kind of thirdly, again, does your team have the same work style, right? Like, do you actually mesh with that team? Because you're going to be spending so much time there, it can actually hurt your longer term career if you just don't even have alignment on how your manager and you work together and stuff like that.
One of the things that I didn't really do as well, let's say earlier in my career, that I started to do, later on, is really break down the concept of value into, a couple of different parts. Like for me, it's, you got the mission of like what it is that you're doing, the community that you're doing it around, and then just growth.
What I wish I would have known when I was first starting out, uh, I think it's placing real value on uh, trying to figure out what you're passionate about. And that doesn't mean like put immense amount of pressure on yourself to say, hey, this is the only thing that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I think a lot of times folks get worried about that, like, oh, well, if I pick this, then I can't do anything else. But it's like, no, understand that, like, listen, you're going to have like a multi-decade career, and there's going to be a lot of different choices that you can make throughout that career. And you can change industries, you can change job types, you can change, all kinds of things about yourself. But figure out whatever it is that you're passionate about at this time. And then I would say, like, find the people within, kind of your network that are best at that thing. And then really learn that inside and out.
One thing that, Amit said that I think, this is one of these things I really wish I had heard as a student. Like, effectively, there is no track, right? You could have told me 40,000 times until you were blue in the face that like what I do after school isn't what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I wouldn't believe you, but really like understand that like, your next job out, your first job out of school, all 90% of the time is just that, right? Like it's going to be a path, a stepping stone on like a pathway that's going to wind, and don't feel like you won't have the opportunity to try something else, especially earlier in your career.
Mentorship is something that's, like you said, incredibly impactful, but I don't think a lot of students really take advantage of it, with their school networks, alumni, et cetera. I think one of the big stopping points for a lot of students is they don't really know how to be a good mentee. And I was wondering maybe if you could talk to maybe one or two key traits that you've seen, either as a mentee yourself or as a mentor of mentees that you've done, of what they've done to be good mentees.
So there's sort of three layers, right? Like, one is just one, going ahead and just putting yourself out there. Two, how to be a good mentee, and then three, sort of maintaining that relationship. I'd say one is, a pretty simple shoot your shot, especially as a student, right? You'd be surprised at how willing, and to be honest, how much more willing people are to spend half an hour talking to somebody who is a student and in this learning mode.
I think the one place that students can start is with their professors, right? Like, these are folks that have selectively said, like, I am here because I am interested in educating you, mentoring you. And I think a lot of folks just assume that the relationship that they can have with their professor is whatever's they're teaching in the classroom, right? And in a lot of cases, these are folks that have come from industry, that have a lot of connections, that want to see their students succeed, that want to understand what is your dreams, what are your goals. And they have a vast network that exists, and they're happy to kind of open that up for their students once they understand exactly how they can be helpful.
You don't really get anything out of it, but it just seems that both of you have taken it upon yourself to win possible help. And even though it takes time, it just helps you as a person and tends to somehow pay out in some other way that you can't forecast.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would say, so first of all, with You Aspire, for those who are not familiar with the organizations, it's a nonprofit that helps students from, kind of middle income and low income backgrounds navigate the college financial aid process, and makes college accessible, to as many students as possible, regardless of their background. And I think there's a couple of things that uh, inspired me, kind of to have this be a part of my life. One is just like, I think the work that You Aspire is doing is just phenomenal. It's hard not to like kind of fall in love with the mission of what You Aspire is doing. And I got invited to an event where some U Aspire alums were talking and kind of seeing the impact that education had on their life and their trajectory. It almost like naturally had me kind of start to volunteer for the organization, and then get more deeply involved. And so for me, kind of when I thought about like what I wanted to do with my life, it was like, hey, how can I emulate both of those characteristics that have been super helpful to my parents' journey? And I think like, that's why I'm dedicating like my career and my life to education, both professionally in volunteer ways.
I think no one gets anywhere in life alone, and much like in that story, I was an immigrant and didn't know a lot around just different career opportunities and things. I actually went through a program called Prep for Prep that exposed me to the consulting world, exposed me to banking and investing generally. Life is very demanding, but you see what's important to people and what they do, right? Like clearly with Amit, education is big aspect in his professional life, and his personal life, and I think that's kind of the way I look at things as well, right? Just paying it full, knowing that so many folks have invested in my success. It's hard to sort of go extended periods of time and not think about what am I doing for someone else, or when the opportunity comes across the desk to talk to an undergrad or something like that, like host host an opportunity, to say no almost feels like it feels hard, and I think that's because it's just such an important part of who I am. And so you're really thinking about what you're passionate about, and it won't feel like a chore. It won't feel like a demand when you end up giving back in that way.